Here we go.
Welcome to Drawing Hive.
All right.
All right, everybody. Welcome. I'm here with this. I'm John. I'm here with Timmy, and I'm here with Cassandra Kim. And we are Timmy, I haven't got the number.
Are you okay?
I know what no, what episode are we on?
We're on episode 238.
238. Just amazing. For those of you who don't know, you see the big sign that says Visual Arts Passage. We are the sponsor of the Drawing Hive. What we do at Visual Arts Passage, we help people develop careers in illustration and painting, gallery artists, and we do it through an online, our online mentorship resources. So if you have any interest, check us out. If not, let's get started drawing. Tonight, we are drawing the third season just came out of the White Lotus. A lot of great visuals, starting with this guy, Walton Goggins.
Love that guy.
He's, he can change so much visually.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He can become
He's
something,
very talented.
but he's
He was a
incredible.
grease ball. He was a grease ball for like 20 years, and he's kind of becoming like a sex symbol now. It's really weird.
But like in a hipster way, like he's
Yeah.
too cool
Yeah.
to care that anybody thinks he looks good.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
All right. So Natasha Rothwell and this guy, Patrick Schwarzenegger. I've already seen too much of him.
I watched the first episode too.
Yeah.
And Lisa, I guess it's Manabal, Manabal. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this photograph.
Mhm.
So we're going to do 3 poses, 2 20 and 1 40-minute pose. And you can do all 4 of the characters. You can do one of them. You can do whatever you want. Don't pay attention to what Cassandra and I are doing. Or do pay attention. If you watch
Yeah.
Cassandra, you're going to learn something. So let's get started drawing.
Yeah, and everybody, I just want to remind you, please post your work throughout the night. So if you share your work to Instagram using hashtag DrawingHive238, so hashtag DrawingHive 238, hashtag DrawingHive and Visual Arts Passage, we're going to check out all the art at the end of the night. It's my favorite part of the show. It's always really fun. You get to see how many different ways you can skin a cat. It's really awesome. And also, if you come here long enough, you're going to get to meet some other artists and really join a really cool community.
I agree with that. There are a lot of people in our community are, I guess, the people that draw with us consistently, but there's a lot of students from the Visual Arts Passage that draw with us.
Yeah, we didn't
Pardon?
intend for it, but it kind of became like an add-on class. I saw that Art of the Covers group, Elena is orchestrated this awesome meetup for all the students in that class. They're doing like a weekly Tuesday meetup. And originally somebody recommended, let's do Thursday night. And someone was like, we can't do Thursday night. It's Drawing Hive.
That's awesome.
And I was like,
Yay.
that's awesome. Thank you so much for not stealing our entire audience. Yeah. Yeah. So what's everybody been working on this week? It's bitter cold. Is everybody cold? I'm cold. Cassandra, are you cold?
Yeah, I'm cold. I'm cold.
It's brutally cold. I'm in New York. Cassandra, you're in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
John, Kansas City is like -100.
Yeah, it's super cold.
Yeah.
Well, it will be that way in New York and Richmond. It probably is in Richmond now, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's cold for us, and we just got a bunch of snow.
Yeah, I'm dog sitting for Matt Salkis, which has become my side gig is that I find interesting people that live in cool cities and I wait till they go on vacation so I can watch their dog. Um, it's a really it's to be totally honest, if there's anyone in the audience, if you live in a cool city and you have a dog that you need somebody to watch, I'm really good at it and I will do it just for lodging.
Yeah, and then the question is going to be what constitutes a cool city.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm pretty open-minded. I'm looking for, I'll give you all my list. Right now, top of my list, I want to go to Amsterdam so bad.
Oh yeah, that's a fun city.
So if
Beautiful
anybody's in
museums.
Amsterdam, I know one person in particular. I don't know if they have a dog, but yeah, I'm having to walk this like 2 pound dog in this like bitter cold, snowing outside. I love that though, you know. That's that's like New York on a snowy night. It's so cool. I love it.
Great.
Um, so what have you all been working on?
Oh, I am finishing up my solo show, so I got most of it in the mail before the snowstorm, but it still got delayed by weather. Um, but it's almost time. I'm really excited. My show opens in New Orleans March 6th at Les Meaux.
Where do you know where in the city that is, or
Yeah, it's on
will you
Julia
go?
Street.
Yeah,
It's like I feel like it's walking distance from the French Quarter.
cool. I love New Orleans is one of the coolest cities.
Oh, I love it. I unfortunately won't be visiting for this opening. It's just honestly too expensive. Like the tickets were really expensive right now. But I it's one of my favorite cities to visit. Great food, great art, great people, just cool place.
Yeah, my good friend, his entire family is from New Orleans, and we went to his wedding there, and it
Hmm.
was like the full. I mean, it was a huge wedding. It was way over the top. It was one of those weddings where all you're doing is just like trying to do math in your head. I'm like, I'm like, how much this like insane thing costs. But the coolest thing was the what are the not parades? What are the bands where you like march down a street? What is that called?
Right.
No, it's something. It's a Mardi Gras thing.
Oh,
It's not a Mardi Gras thing, it's a New Orleans thing. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was a blast. I always think about that.
that's funny. I've been there
Yeah.
for Mardi Gras, and the last time I was there was remember I was in New Orleans right when we decided to can the Academy for,
Oh,
Oh, that's tough.
for COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, you were like, guys, it's fine.
Yeah, I had just left New York like the week before,
For
and
anybody wondering though, we canceled before anyone canceled anything. Like, right, John? Like people
yeah,
were like, why are you can't we canceled so
I remember
early.
being on the phone with people and telling them what we were going to do, and they were like, "Why are you doing this now? We don't.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on,
Yeah.
except that a lot of our students came from overseas, and they they already couldn't get visas. So
Yeah, I remember talking with Luca Nimolato. He was the one of our guest artists, and all of his family was in Italy, and he was like, you guys need to cancel it. And this is
um,
like in February.
right.
Like, so people were pretty shocked when we canceled it. But boy, were we right. John, somebody asked, are you using charcoal? Do you want to tell them what you're using?
I'm using a Sennelier oil crayon, and it reacts to the to what I'm working on masonite that's primed with acrylic house paint.
Yeah.
Gives it a pretty fairly slick surface. Got a little bit of tooth to it. A little bit less than I like painting on this, but um, it works really well with this. It doesn't pick up, if this had a ton of texture, I mean, I would be just going through a pastel couple of minutes.
When you are selecting a pastel to put down like your first mark, does it matter to you what color you're grabbing? Like when you're doing the kind of a monochromatic.
Kind of like this, I usually like something like a burnt umber, or sometimes I even draw with a black at the beginning.
Is it just important that it's contrasting strong enough with your surface?
Value wise, yeah.
Yeah.
I want it to be fairly strong.
Okay.
Um, this is something I've really like gone on a chase. I have an educational thing to do tonight, which we'll do in a few minutes, but I might talk about why I'm doing these. This is a good thing to talk about, this is what we're doing tonight, and what we always do. This is an artist gym. This is like a place to practice, do your push-ups and sit-ups and try new things, or, make something nice too, if you want to dig into it. And so I've been on this pursuit of trying to figure out a new way to handle these materials, and I'm getting pretty close. Timmy, do you mind if I talk about this for a couple minutes before I talk about the?
Yeah, I think that's great. We can take a
Um,
break right before just to
Yeah.
move to the next pose.
Yeah, and so I wanted
Yeah.
to start this drawing from scratch, and I'm going to talk about even a reason why. So I have like a few of these that I've done, and that are similar materials, and these are some that are like really high polish, really high
Oh,
finish
great.
to them.
That's awesome.
There's Eddie.
Oh,
Mhm.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee. But this is pretty much all oil crayon, and I used acrylic paint to block in some things underneath, but it's almost all oil crayon and just dry brush oil paint moving it around.
John, for somebody who doesn't tune in, I know we have quite a few new people here tonight. Like those drawing, like that's not what you're just doing that from Drawing Hive. Like those are not that John doesn't put those in a John doesn't have like a celebrity
Oh
gallery.
no, it's
You know
funny.
what I
I
mean?
I, I probably
Yeah,
have 60 or 70 of these little paintings
yeah.
from
Are you ever like you're ever sitting in there just
that.
like we gotta figure out how to make money on
I
this?
know.
There's Eraserhead. I never, and I most of the time I never finish them. I just
Yeah.
that there's
That's
Chris.
what I was gonna ask. How much work after an episode of Drawing Hive have you put into these that you're
Well,
showing?
that's Drawing Hive right there.
That's Drawing Hive right there. But how about like Pee Wee?
Okay, yeah, there's sometimes
Or
this is Drawing Hive.
okay.
So cool.
That's a 2 hours.
Yeah.
And minus you're talking for 20,
And
30.
me talking and doing all this stuff.
That's an
This
hour,
was
probably more like an hour 15.
this
Yeah.
was pretty much Drawing Hive too. But Eddie, I probably worked on for another couple hours afterwards.
Okay.
But then last week, Terry, that's what I did from this guy,
Oh my gosh. That's
Terry
awesome.
Crews. And and that's kind of what, it's not that much different. And I kind of didn't feel like I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. What I'm trying to accomplish, you're going to think I'm nuts, but I think this is one more successful one.
Oh, really? Can you explain that? That's interesting.
Because I'm trying to throw myself off a little bit. And like when I did Chris Jones, and I almost completely lost everything and brought it back. But in this piece, and Chris Jones, and what's this guy's name? Scott, right?
Yeah.
Adam Scott.
Adam Scott. I did too careful of a drawing, and it was easy I obliterated it and thinking that was going to make it interesting. And so it's like this one got really obliterated, and I liked it a lot,
It's
but
just
I
beautiful.
couldn't help myself but bring it back to something. And it's not what I wanted to do. It's
But
because,
it looks so good.
yeah, but I mean, I've been doing this for a long period of time. It's not what I wanted to do. So tonight I'm gonna draw, but I'm gonna not be as careful I'm gonna try to be a little bit more interesting with my drawing, and
Mhm.
see if I can relate the drawing to the finish a little bit more. Right. And those, I don't think especially the Chris Jones. There's thing about the Chris Jones I like. I mean, I love this, what's going on, how the shoulder's being explained and some of the looseness of everything. Um, but it's very accurately drawn.
Mhm.
And it's not the mindset that I want to pair with the type of painting I want to do. So I know that's kind of heady for and a lot to think about. But I want to pair my drawing with my attitude of the paint a little bit better. And I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but it makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
So anyway, but again, back to the gym, right?
Yeah. Walton Goggins is like, it's so cool because I'm guessing he's like 50. What a cool second wind.
Yeah. He's having so fun as like a character actor.
He's surpassed character actor now though.
But he still plays very different guy. He's
Yeah,
recognizable,
but
but
he's
like you
such a
don't know who he's gonna be.
he's become a lead role like guy now. He's a lead cast member.
Mm-hmm.
And my entire life he was like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just hope he doesn't get his hair done. I just I want I want like there to be like, like it's just Bruce Willis was it was such an honor to see that guy shave his head. And I just feel like, with all these flights to Turkey happening, all these plug jobs going on. I admire the guys that
Hold
stand
strong.
true, hold
Is that where they
strong.
get them done? Is in Turkey?
That's a popular that's kind of the joke destination, yes. I don't yeah. I would say not only is it the joke, it's pretty true. I've seen like photos of the flights and it's just like a plane full of like 40 men with like bandaged heads.
On the way
It's
back.
pretty funny. If you look at like Turkey return flight, it's pretty funny. I mean, no judgment. I just I think it's funny. Uh, we drew Mateo Lane last week, and that was his comedy special, which was Heartbreak and Hair Plugs, which I thought was a great name to a comedy special. Um, but yeah, so I'm in New York. I have not gotten to go to a museum quite yet. Um, do you guys have a favorite museum you go to when you're here that you think I should go to?
The
Well,
new
I'm
museum.
natural history nut.
Oh,
Yeah.
that too. Yeah. Nope.
Gianna applies to jobs at the Natural uh, his Museum of History. Oh my gosh, I'm like losing my mind. She applies for work there. I think she's done it like once a year now.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's the dream.
Heller, I support that pursuit wholeheartedly.
Yeah, we're gonna move here and live in the Scamp probably. I did look at if there was like a hipster RV camp in Brooklyn somewhere. I was like, I can make it happen.
That seems like that should be a thing.
Yeah, I thought surely this is going to be a thing. And the only one I found was like hardly that. And it was like $3,000 a month to park there.
Wow.
And I was like, I can get a studio, yeah, for that.
Yeah.
And like not live in a trailer in Brooklyn. Yeah, yeah.
And I love the cloister.
Okay, the cloister. That's on my list. That's where I gotta go.
Yeah, that's a
You mentioned that
cooler.
last time.
I mean, obviously the Met, but like the cloister, I geek out over that.
I,
Yeah,
I, I like the new museum. Um,
the new museum.
yeah, right on the park. Um,
NEW or NEUE? NEUE. Yeah.
that's really stupid of me to not be able to tell you which one it is.
I don't know. The only reason I ask is AJ just put it in, so it's probably NEUE.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the last time I was there was right before I was in New Orleans, and I was there with Sterling.
Yeah.
We went to see all of the uh, Sheila.
Your little COVID tour.
Yeah, my COVID, COVID started.
Pre-COVID tour.
So we were there for
John was
the,
like, I gotta have boots on the ground.
yeah, yeah, right before all hell broke loose. But uh, it was really fun going to the museum with Sterling. Uh,
Yeah,
Both
sure.
of us were really wanted to see all of the Gustav Klemts, but unfortunately they were all down. But they had an extra amount of. I mean, all the Sheilas were down, but they had an extra number of Klemts up, and
Yeah.
it was incredible.
The um the public space, I mean, so we went to my wife got in early today, and so went to Penn Station, and it's amazing the amount of like craft you can see in the city just in public spaces. It's
Mhm.
incredible. It, if you just keep your eyes open, you see it everywhere. It's unbelievable. Just in the architecture, just in
Oh,
the
yeah.
stonework, where you're just like we're walking up a staircase in the New York City Library, and I'm like, this railing today, to have this railing made would cost $200,000 in marble and another $200,000 in tradesmen,
Hmm.
in craft. And they probably couldn't replicate. There'd probably be the person that could do it, it'd be a 2 year wait. Yeah. And for anybody wondering, if you toggle in the chat to everyone, let us know where you're tuning in from, and let us know what materials you're using. Also, please use the chat to ask questions. If you have any questions about technique, process, anything like that, we're definitely happy to chat about it. We've got an educational chat coming up in about 7 minutes or so, so hang tight.
Somebody had a good question. What part of the face would you recommend starting with?
All of it. Uh,
All of it.
and I truly mean that. It's like try to find, well, I always find enough of it to try to find the shape. I don't want to get into, and you can see what an awful nose I'm putting in here, but try to find the outside, you know, something that will give you something to measure off of. And and Cassandra is too. I don't want to totally commit, you know, and speak for her, but
Like, you taught me, so you can go ahead.
Cassandra is very much an observational drawer, and as I am. And so I just kind of look at it, but I want some parameters, and shape is the thing that gives me the parameters. If I get a shape that's somewhat correct,
Yeah.
then I can fill in the blanks. Kind of what I'm doing now.
This is not a question, so but somebody mentioned like starting with the eyes. Is there a reason you would or
But you got to
wouldn't?
figure out where they go in relation to everything
Yeah.
else. It's a good thing to figure out like the angle of the
Yeah.
eyes first, how they sit in the head. I'm looking at kind of the top of his ear here, and the eyes are just slightly above that. They're pretty level in this photograph.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, but I'm still adjusting the shape of his face.
On the topic of shape design, I was dealing with a comedian last week. I sent an edit. And I always ask the people I'm working with if I think they're fun, right? Like, so I think they're fun, and I want to have I just like, oh, it's gonna be fun to like goof back and forth on like a video edit with this person. And so I said, do you want to be part of the editing process early, or do you want to wait until it's like mostly there? Like I really want to be involved early. And so I sent it to them, and they freaked out. They're like, this is not, they did not, deep down, they did not want to be part of the early process. Right? And they're sending me these things of like, this isn't right, and that's not right, and they're kind of like really panicky. And I'm like, no, 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 don't send me like sound notes. You can't send me like audio not balanced notes, or like colors, and like color was bad in one shot. And I'm like, you can't send me that. Like that's not, we're not there yet. and you guys will appreciate this. I used you all as an example. I said, this is this is what we're doing. We're doing shape design. We want to get the basic story.
Yeah.
So like if you squint at it, it makes sense. So if you skim through this, visually it makes sense. You can close your eyes, and if you listen to it, you can probably retell the story. But the analogy I gave him is I said, pretend you're going to draw a face. But by starting with the face, what you're asking me to do would be like if I started with the face and all I did was I focused on the nose for 2 hours, right? And then at the end, you're like, okay, now finish the face really fast. And like it becomes a mess. Right? There's no like I don't know. You'd be able to express that better than I did. I said that and it actually magically made sense to the guy. But yeah, I don't know.
No, you did it good. You did good. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
starting simple.
Well,
yeah.
look at what Cassandra's doing, blocking it. Is
Mhm.
that Patrick?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm getting some of the water in so I don't have to go around the head.
But she's finding the shape, and then you can always find the details. Start from the very vague, and then and then work into the specific as you move forward.
John, I've got two questions before we do your chat. One is when coloring a drawing, is it better to go from light to dark or from dark to light?
Um,
Probably depends, right?
yeah, I think it depends on what it's kind of a lot of what you want as an outcome.
Hmm.
Um, what is it going to be a real dark piece? Is it going to be a real light piece? That would matter to me in that answering that question. Um,
Also, like what material you're using. Like
yeah, that makes
if you're painting or you're laying a base of charcoal, like a nice mid-tone is great because then you kind of lay things out and then you can choose to go darker in areas and lighter in others. So it
Yeah.
totally depends. If you're with pencil, I mean, I think naturally you start light and go dark.
Yeah. Okay.
remember this, that the easiest thing to do as a drawer is to polish. And
Okay.
understand all you got to do is understand form principles, how that works.
Dude, it's the exact same with editing.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm-hmm.
guys, they get so freaked out about the polishing, and
I
I
know.
will be like, that is the most boring, easy part. It is. I'm like, I don't really know. Every time I get a new job, I'm like, I don't really even know if this is going to be good. Like until the first part is done, the shape of it. Yeah, that's interesting. It's so funny how similar it is.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Like
Oh, sorry.
there's some people that, they were mentioning starting with the eyes. If you're doing the eyes even before you have the head shape too, you're committing to something without looking at the big picture. And so, I mean, this is just really roughly laid in, but knowing your head shape and then choosing the eyes, like you're setting yourself up for better because you're looking at the head shape that's recognizable first and starting with the simple shape and then, going in for the smaller shapes as you go along. So some people do, and they can be very successful, but I find it very hard because you have to commit to what you chose to do initially versus the other one gives you wiggle room.
Yeah. Yeah, we tend to not say like definitives, but
Well,
there there's
a lot
always
of
an easy way. Right? Not there's always like I don't know. It's not the easy way, but like it's like, do you want to make it easier? Or you want to make it hard? I don't know.
well, my drawing technique and style, the way I draw is process of it
Yeah.
is comes from a couple of things. Looking at a couple of different ways of drawing. Like you could look at like academic drawers, like uh, they would find the shape first too. They call it enveloping. And they would take like the shape, I don't know if you can see my photograph, and they would like draw a line, a line like this,
Yeah.
and you get just really big basic shapes of something. Maybe do the head like that, and they look at that blue line around it, then they would transfer that blue line. They would just try to get that shape, and that's like enveloping a shape.
It's just allowing you to think in a shape.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just simplifies what you're looking at.
Because it
And
gets confused. I see how somebody can get caught up. You start looking at Goggins' head, right?
Mhm.
And somebody
yeah,
says, "What is the shape?" And I can see you just following. I could see you accidentally following the hairline, or and it kind of becomes a mess. I don't know.
absolutely. So,
Um,
you try to simplify it as much as you can. And I try to do it just by getting a relationship. Okay, I know my eyes are going to go basically here, and my ear's going to be over here, and then I'll measure down, kind of divide up the space of, the heights of this. Now, granted, I'm not trying to do an accurate drawing right now. That's my job for tonight, is to try to do something, have the drawing be a little bit goofy,
yeah,
or
I
a
guess I
little
could
bit out of the
probably maybe for not less experience, but just somebody popping in that doesn't really know what we talk about often, is you guys aren't trying to clone, right? I mean,
I'm trying to create a look and feel and an attitude with a material that I've been just playing around with. Then I showed you the real polish stuff that I can get to real polish, and I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more organic. One of the things that makes it even more strange is that my head is on an angle, so it's the perspective on the drawings off a little bit from what I'm looking at.
right.
Um,
Um, and then I've got one more question, and then we should move on to well, actually, I'm going to say this. Let's move on to the next image. It's hashtag Drawing Hive 238, hashtag Drawing Hive and Visual Arts Passage. Throw that in the caption of your Instagram post. We're going to go to the gram tonight. We're going to look at all the art. I'm really excited to see it. White Lotus does have an active social. Um, Believe it or not, what is it called? Severance did not. They just have
Right.
somebody that stole the Severance account. Um,
Yeah, I was
I,
surprised by that.
yeah, I was really surprised. Like a hit. Apple is famous for not promoting their shows. Um, but yeah, tag White Lotus. I'm sure that you'll probably get a repost. Someone will get a repost. Anyway, somebody asked, would you recommend learning the Loomis method for drawing heads?
sure. You can between uh looking at Loomis and Bridgman, there's just incredible information uh in there. And I kind of added, as I said, I take kind of bits and pieces from things I've seen other artists teach, but I truly learned how to draw just by looking at something, trying to define the silhouette shape of it, and um work my way out of it, work my way through it. And it's very observational. I mean, there's all kinds of like methods, sight size, uh, you know, the barge system. And you can learn constructive anatomy. Uh, there's all kinds of different drawing methods that you can apply. Um, my favorite drawers are observational drawers that kind of mix and match. They use some of those things, but they bits and pieces of them, but they really have just trained their eye and hand to replicate what they're looking at. And I think that my favorite type of drawer comes from that. And again, I'll say this, and this may not make that much sense, but I find my favorite drawers doing really interesting drawings, and they may not be as accurate or as great copies as what somebody could do something in real high polish and finish, but I find an interesting drawing being more successful. And hence the reason I'm doing what I'm doing tonight.
I think, John, I've got bad news. Right before you talk, Ray is here to probably step on your toes.
Oh, uh, about what?
I don't know, whatever you're talking about. I'm sure he's
Hey
gonna know
Ray,
a ton
how are you
about it.
doing?
We got Raymond Benia here, everybody.
But yeah, it's funny. Ask Ray the same question right now because he may have a very different answer.
About the Loomis method.
Yeah, Loomis are just drawing in general.
Yeah. So Ray, right before you showed up, someone asked, is using the Loomis method a good method for drawing heads? Putting you in the hot seat right out the gate.
May not be there to answer the question yet.
Yeah. Yep. It's too bad. So that's the answer. John,
Not
do
to be
you
confused with the Cassandra Loomis Kim method.
the Cassandra Loomis can method? Yeah.
Okay. Can one of you break down what the Loomis method is? That's what somebody wanted to know.
I'll let Ray will understand it much better than I do.
We got a flash of his face for a
I
second.
know.
Yeah.
I'm like
How's that?
laughing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can hear
yeah.
you
We
now.
can hear you
Did you
now.
hear my question before? Have you
Oh my God. I was in the midst of answering it and cracking jokes, and
and you're just like, why are they just like steamrolling over me?
Yeah, Ray,
Cassandra was like, yeah.
you just got here.
Anyway,
We want you to demonstrate the Loomis method for us, using the Walton Goggins
Yeah,
photograph.
come on, chop chop, Ray.
it's interesting. The Loomis method, it's a great, all these methods essentially, just to answer the question, is just a way of being able to abstract the head, or, in this case, the head or any form, so that you can conceptualize the form on a two-dimensional surface. So it makes it easier for you to understand how to push and pull forms in space, right? Because you're trying to create the illusion of three dimensions on a two-dimensional surface. I think it's a great method. I mean, Loomis himself in the books always said that, like, this is just one way of doing things. And he hopes, like, his hope was just that you would find something effective and then go off and do your own thing with it. So yeah, I think it's great. If it doesn't work, then you could try the Riley method. If that doesn't work, you could try, site size. If that doesn't work, you could try comparative measurement, or if that doesn't work, you could just try straight observation, as direct as possible. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, you answered it pretty much the same way I did. A
Perfect.
little bit more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I love Loomis. I mean, he'll be the first to tell you. I mean, he can't tell you now because he's dead, but I am sure, because he says it in his books, especially in creative illustration, where if you read creative illustration, you'll see, like, here's the same subject, 50 ways, different ways, of painting. He'll be the first to say, like, there's no one right method. It's just whatever is the right method is the one that works for you. Everyone's wired differently.
Yeah, a big part, whatever works for you, what you're trying to achieve.
And that person was saying like they were like wondering like more like how to, and I think that that's probably more of a more extensive process that you would want to look into. Than we probably won't do that now, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's just the idea of working general to specific, right? So he'll mass in a head and sort of mark off where the proportions are, where the features are, and then he'll then go about breaking down the major forms and working more and more specific. You got to think about it like what the steps solve on a conceptual level. Like, what is it trying to do? Like, when you look at processes like that, don't just blindly copy it step by step by step. It's not like a recipe, like an egg recipe or something like that, right? So it's more a way of thinking. So you've got to kind of step away and ask yourself, okay, and you can contrast it with other methods of, like, okay, what are you trying to accomplish with this method, that method, so on and so forth.
Right. Well, good news. They said they're actually working that way right now. So you were doing it and you didn't even know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so John, do you wanna jump into your
Yeah.
top? I got no theme song for you, and Cassandra said she's been practicing all week on the intro.
Well, the guy I'm doing tonight wouldn't appreciate the theme song. So,
Oh yeah, who's kind of grumpy.
no, he was a serious guy. I don't think he
Well,
would.
we're not going to be serious just for the spotlight.
All right. All
All
right.
right,
So let me
I'll do
let me
it.
get what I
I'm not stopping it just because an artist says we can't do it. All right, John, go
I'm
ahead.
just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
For anybody who's new, we usually have a theme song for this. A
All right.
theme intro.
Can you see me full screen?
Yep.
Sure.
All right. So I couldn't help but do this artist because of what I said last week. So I am introducing somebody that means a lot to me. And I think he was really, really an incredible illustrator and even a more incredible painter. And this guy, Fred Otnes.
Nice pick.
And
Boom.
absolutely, I showed you he was he was actually the physical neighbor of Austin Briggs. They lived right behind each other. Austin lived right behind Fred's house, or if you're on Austin's house, Fred lived right behind him. And this was like a fairly rural area. So, and I have pictures to show later on. But Fred was an extremely successful illustrator. He was born in 1925 in Junction City, Kansas, of all places. And I'm trying to get to my notes here. Um, he moved around a lot as a child, and his father's business took him to lots of different places. They relocated to Lincoln, Nebraska when he was still very young. And in high school in Lincoln, Nebraska, he started getting work or doing work for the local newspaper, the Lincoln Journal. That led him to understand that he could actually, through the applied arts, make a living as an artist. And lots of things happened. He went to the Academy of Art in Chicago, and
Home of Andrew Loomis.
yeah. And while he was while he was studying there, he applied for position at a local studio, and the Whitaker Guernsey studio in Chicago, and started doing illustration, advertising jobs, a lot of things, kind of a hodgepodge of things of working in a studio at that time. He was able to do that for a few years, and then he got sick of, so this is, now I really want you to think about this. 1942, he was drafted. So he was a Marine, and he actually had to serve our country in a very tumultuous time. And it's funny because he didn't talk much about it. I'm fortunate. This was one of my father's best friends, and his wife Fran was without doubt my mother's best friend. And I spent a huge amount of time around them, and I remember seeing photos of him and his brother, and in their military outfits or their military uniforms, and but never said much about it, never talked much about it. But Fred looks kind of like a serious guy here, and he definitely was. He was part of this group, the famous Illustrators Workshop, Bob Heindel on the left, Fred to the right, Bob Peak in the center, Alan Kober, Bernie Fuchs, and my father. This was photographed in Paris at one of the workshops there. Fred started out doing very straightforward representational illustration, drawing and painting like what was in the style of what was going on at the time period. He could draw with the best of them, made incredibly great covers. This is one of his most notable illustrations about the Kennedy assassination for Post magazine. He did a lot of Saturday Evening Post work. And then you'll see there's a little bit of a difference in this one where things start to, like, collage starts coming into it works its way into his work. Fred moved after, I think he worked in Chicago for almost 10 years, and then moved to New York. Got a job in a studio in New York. Rented a house in Westport, Connecticut, and worked as a kind of a traditional illustrator for about a decade, and did all kinds of things as an illustrator. You'll probably recognize this.
So cool.
Yeah, and he was so into it. The first time I heard of Clint Eastwood or anything about Clint Eastwood was at Fred Otnes's home. And he was he worked on several of the movies. This is not what Fred became famous for. This was a precursor to what him really adding something and taking the illustration world to a different place. You'll start to see more interesting work, more collage work. He was, they said, after 10 years of living in renting this house in Westport, Connecticut, he and his wife bought a piece of property, and they built a house that I have pictures of later on. That's just amazing. And he said the house was a huge part of him being an artist. It helped him change everything. The town we grew up in everything was colonial, very traditional, New England homes. And he built this very contemporary home. And it was all this interest into the contemporary art world. It was very common on Fridays that Fred and my father would get on the train and go into New York City and do nothing but look at gallery works, go to the museum and look at contemporary painters. They're both very interested in it. And so this type of work started showing up from Fred. He was very influenced by Joseph Cornell, Robert Rauschenberg, Louis Nevelson, and he was trying to incorporate it into his illustration work, and it started working its way in. And he, there was a pure, I don't know when or if Lithopinion magazine still exists. It probably doesn't. But he started doing all of this work. The editor of the magazine really enjoyed him looking at the contemporary art world and applying it to the illustration world. And so this is what some of his early illustrations as a collage illustrator look like. And it became very, very popular. And he found a home for it in some editorial, but it was incredible in the institutional aspect of our industry, of the industry, doing annual reports, the type of work where you couldn't really define, something like Honeywell, a tech company, IBM. He was doing the annual reports for all these tech companies early on because the look of what he was doing, and you'll see more of that in just a second. This was actually the cover of the Society of Illustrators, Illustrator 16.
What year was that one?
Illustrator 16, I don't know what year it was. Probably would
Wow.
have been like late 70s,
So cool.
mid 70s, late 70s, probably mid 70s. Oops, did a number of movie posters that looked a little bit different from his original movie posters. He did 34 movie posters, actually. Did a lot of stamps for the government. Again, a lot of advertising work, but this is the type of thing that he just dominated for 10, 15 years in the industry. If Honeywell wanted an annual report or a brochure done, they wanted Fred to do it. It had a look and feel to it that was very different. Remember, this is early 80s, mid 70s. And it had a contemporary look to it that was way beyond what people were doing technically at the time. And he just killed. He was just an incredibly good designer. This is not my favorite thing that he did. He dominated this part of the industry. He was financially hugely successful doing this type of work. You imagine, doing 15 pieces for IBM, Honeywell, all of these, the Bell companies, anything that had to do with technology, they were after him. But he started it at when digital work started to become really popular and people could really, at the beginning, people were trying to imitate what he was doing digitally, and they could. Digital photography allowed that to happen too. And a lot of that work kind of went a different place. So he started focusing on his own work as a painter. And this is where, excuse me, he came into his own in a way that I just think is magnificent.
Yeah.
The work became very personal, and the guy just had an aesthetic and taste that was just impeccable.
John, how big are these?
Some of them, he had this very specific process, mostly for his, and it changed, but it was a 3M print, transfer process that he used, and he bought huge sheets of this film. So to answer the question, some of them, these are 4 feet tall. Most of them are, some of them are small. When I say small, 18 by 24.
Wow.
But a lot of them got up to, 36, 3 feet by 4 feet.
Wow. I mean, when you think collage, right? Outside of Rauschenberg, I think collage are usually
Small. Yeah.
smaller, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And some of it is small, but most of it's, I don't know, decent, 24, 30, 24, 36.
That's big for me.
Yeah, me too.
I love these things. I mean, they're just so sophisticated in their composition, the mark making.
I love that.
And this one I'm going to talk a little bit more personally about him because I knew him very well. I always joke because I learned how to swim in his pool.
John, what years does a lot of this encompass?
So the illustration work up to 1990,
Mhm.
and then the focus of the painting from 1990 on, maybe mid 80s to Fred passed away in 2015, but the last time I saw him was in 2008, 2009, and he battled with dementia. And his wife had died, Franny had died of cancer a decade earlier.
Wow.
And so he was kind of out there by himself, kind of struggled. Just, he was very comfortable in his environment, but he had to have somebody come into his house and help him the last few years, and then he actually went into a home. But he was magnificent.
Yes. His use of texture too. That is immaculate.
Yeah.
There's some of my favorites here.
Hmm.
They're so
Oh.
powerful. And he did
And
this.
so
Go ahead.
he's painting over like with these pieces, like you look at them and you're like, I have no idea how this was done.
They're on canvas, and he would have this printing, this 3M transfer of photography and then sometimes just shapes and things that he made. And then he would take, it was really interesting. I have one of them in my home, but he was doing this. I was kind of unclear how he did it until I actually saw him do it physically at the academy. And he did it like kind of a traditional, how you would think a collage would be made, gluing it down. And on top of this transfer that he made of just some basic shapes or photography that he wanted in it. And then he actually glued some physical things down. And then I know Cassandra's going to cringe over this, but this is all behind, framed behind glass.
Then that's fine.
But he would oil the acrylic aspect of it, things that were finished that were covered in matte medium, he would oil it and then paint acrylic on top of it.
Okay, yeah, I do cringe with
He would put lenses and
I was
you
like,
put
oh, that's
lenses.
Cassandra's the
What's coming?
80s,
Well, you
man.
got to follow me on this.
Can you explain why you cringe, Cassandra?
You don't-
Yeah.
Well, you don't put acrylic over top of oil.
Right. It forces it, it'll force the
Yeah.
paint to crack.
Yeah, and so that's what what he wanted to happen is he wanted the paint to crack, and he would chip off about 99% of the acrylic he put down and just leave little pieces of it
Okay, so it's by design.
Yeah, it was totally by design. And
Okay.
he achieved these just incredible textures, and these things are so stunning to just walk up to.
Oh, I can imagine that
Oh,
texture.
yeah.
Ooh.
And what were the original, like the Clint Eastwood ones done? Was it just like a flat acrylic that he
I just bet it
put
was
on top
acrylic.
of?
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
straight acrylic. I mean, I had went into his studio quite a bit, but I had no idea what he was doing. Somebody asked my dad how he did it at one point. He goes, I don't have any idea how he does this stuff. He had a very specific printing process, transfer process that he would do, and then, finish them in paint. They're exquisite.
That is-
Mm.
These are towards the end, the last 5 or 6 years that he worked, and
wow.
they just got better and better and better.
No kidding. How big is the one you own, John?
It's 24 square.
Oh, that's lovely.
That'll fit my car. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a wall, if you don't need
Yeah.
it.
This is the book, Fred Otnes on collage painting. It's written by Jill Bossert. You can find it.
Oh,
Encourage everybody to look for it. It's an amazing book. Okay. That was Fred's house.
What?
That's insane.
Oh my
What
God.
state was that in?
It lived in the same town that I grew up in Reading, Connecticut.
is that
What is
Mid
this
Journey
cool?
or
What is
Stable
this?
Diffusion?
What is this like green, blue? Oh my lagoon.
He found this piece of property that had a quarry on it. And that was the thing that made him want to buy the property. It was probably sat on 6 or 7 acres. And he had a student of Philip Johnson design the house. And the house was a huge part of him.
Yeah.
Everything about it. The reason I have all these recent shots of it, is because somebody bought it and you can rent it.
Oh,
I
that's
was gonna say-
right.
Really?
I was
You
just gonna say
saying
I
that.
hate I like the top photo and I like the other photo you showed, but I was like, I hate these realtor photos.
Yeah.
of this
Well, this is
place.
you can rent it for $20,000 a month right now.
Yeah.
And
That's totally reasonable. That's what he bought it for.
but this right here is not from the realtor. This shot
Yeah, no, I know.
this shot was something I found online, and
Yeah.
what I wanted to say, imagine I started going over to these people's house when I was like 6 or 7. They didn't have children. I was probably 5 or 6, and I would go over there with my parents, and I would get this talking to all the way over there. You cannot touch anything. You cannot run through this house. You cannot. And what happened? What happened is that we had not been in that town for that long, and my dad and Fred became very close friends. And they used to play chess, 3 or 4 times a week for like 4 and 5 hours at a time. That was their distraction away from their work.
And for anybody new listening, these are artists hanging out. This is
Yeah.
artist families.
Yeah. And so I would go over there with them. I had 2 older sisters that didn't want to have anything to do with me, and so my parents had to deal with me. And so, and so I would always be taken along. The thing that they had that I love in the summertime was great because I could swim. I learned how to swim there. But inside these things, this decoration, the way the house is decorated now, is nothing like he had. He had original Barcelona chairs and couches and just
Oh my gosh.
gorgeous
It's
stuff.
like
It was a museum, and it was what he was interested in visually. It had a huge amount to do. And my dad used to
the new photos look like somebody that like went nuts on Wayfair.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
yeah,
this
totally.
okay, so this was part of his studio, that big skylight. And so
Mhm.
they made a master bedroom out of it for the rental. You can see the bookshelves are still there. He worked against this wall.
Yeah.
This was the other part of the studio. And so I took this. This is so funny that this is out there. This is the whole footprint of their house. Draw a line. When I was going there, this was the studio. All of this.
You're not seeing a cursor.
Yeah, we can't see what your mouth.
Oh,
Which one?
you see where
Just say the name of the room.
okay, so it says bedroom at the top,
Yeah.
13 by 13.
Yeah.
The right wall,
Yeah.
just draw a line right through the center, all those closets,
Yeah.
and then the bedroom that's 20 by 13 at the bottom, that
Yeah.
was part of his studio. So they had one bedroom,
Wow.
and then the rest of the house was
Jeez.
studio.
Oh my God.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And there's a great picture of Fred.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
An amazing guy, an amazing artist. And he was somebody, I mean, he spoke at the Illustration Academy when he was 82 years old.
Wow.
And he flew to Ringling to do that. And I was so appreciative of him doing it. He was just a great guy.
What a rock star. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
That was
All
great.
right. I'm gonna go cry for a while.
Um, that was great. That was really interesting. Everybody, we're moving on to the third and final pose image. So you can draw all 4 if you want, but please post your second image to Instagram. It's hashtag Drawing Hive 236, hashtag Drawing Hive and VVisual Arts Passage. We're gonna check it out at the end of the night. Social media platforms have been changing at a rapid pace, so hopefully we'll get to see most of the work, if not all of it. But if you don't see it, you can join our Discord server, share it, and we'll check it out anytime this week. And honestly, I look at it every Thursday night. I go straight to Discord. Low key, Discord is the coolest spot to hang out with us. So I'll drop a link to it if you don't know where it is. That was really interesting, John.
Thank you,
It was
John.
fun.
Yeah, thanks, John.
So I just one other thing I wanted to say that Fred was so concerned. It's like everything was about how things looked. I mean, it was visuals was his life.
Yeah.
And my father was that way too. And they're a perfect pair. That when you went to his house, my dad used to accuse him. My father said, he had a black 1964 XKE. And he had it for like 20 years, but it was impeccable.
What model? I think most people probably don't know what you're talking
A
about.
Jaguar XKE, the most gorgeous car ever made. I think beautiful design. It was black, chrome wire wheels, just a gorgeous car. And my dad said, It's almost impossible. He parks it inside every night, but he gets up in the morning, he pulls it out and parks it in front of his house. He
Yeah.
said it's part of the furniture for his house. And he said
It's a little, yeah, that
he,
that's a bit of a tism.
he was so well, he was
Yeah,
just that was him, man.
yeah, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Um, I got to I I I enjoyed that because I was getting to hear about the old days last night. So I'm in New York and this was kind of funny. Like my dad's like childhood friend. They knew each other when they were 5, and he's always I'm trying to think of a good way to describe Duffy. He's like my adopted uncle, probably the most stand-up guy that knew my dad ever. But like I don't know. But anyway, Duffy was like, oh, you got to meet this guy. He's Kevin. You haven't seen him since you were a kid. You got to meet him. He's in Brooklyn. You have to. And I would part of me was like, I don't really remember this person. And knowing Duffy, you're like, am I just meeting up with like a big Celtics fan?
Hmm.
Like it could be anybody, you know? And so I kind of lack of a better word, kind of got roped into doing it. And so I meet up with this guy and I show up at this old Italian spot in Greenwich Village, which is cool. I love that. Um, because Greenwich Village, I think is changing at a pace that I don't like. And it's like one
Yeah.
of the cool old spots that's just like a little tiny cozy bar. And I go in and Duffy is like the world's best barfly, right? So that's kind of what I'm expecting that I'm meeting up with, right? And little do I know, it's the Kevin of Pushpin Studios. Who I was messing his name up earlier. It was Kevin Gatta, and teaches typography at Pratt. I mean, it's like that. Like I haven't seen him since I was like 10, and
Mhm.
I got to hear all these cool like old Brad Holland stories.
That's so
Wow.
My worlds
fun.
like collided, and Alan Pekelek of like Pushpin Studios, and it was fun because it wasn't stories that are like, um, you hear stories after somebody passes that are like all about their sainthood, I hear that often about my dad. I'm not really interested in those stories. They're not fun, and often they're not like true to who the person was. And I got to hear like the guy that was the intern under like Holland and Alan Pekelek like talk about how annoying they were sometimes, or how he didn't actually he raved about Brad Holland, but getting to hear like about like how Alan Pekelek would like disappear like right before the bill came out at a restaurant and stuff. You get to hear about like these path like these double crossings that occurred like in the 70s, that are told in kind of like a loving way, but a dig. And he told a story about meeting my dad. And it was way back in the day. My dad really wanted to print. So my dad had a print shop. It was really small in the 80s. And he really wanted to print for Pushpin Studios, which Ray, John, you guys would be able to talk about that studio much better than I could. I wouldn't do it any justice, um, but it was just kind of the classiest of the classy, right? In
Yeah,
New
it was definitely it was a design studio in New York. I think would you say like around the 70s, 80s, right? It was a lot of young
Early
illustrators.
70s.
Yeah.
So he goes, and my dad, I get this from my dad. My dad was like, I'll make work, I'll make my money doing work I don't want to do, and then I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do to work with the people I want to work with. So I'll just so he gave them a deal that was insane. These New Yorkers, like these guys out of Brooklyn were just like, this guy's insane. Why is he doing this for us? Right? And they thought he was the coolest. And like they were just like, this is amazing. Tim Trayvon, this Kansas City guy, has come out of nowhere and he's trying to work with us. And somehow he knew Mark English, and I'm sure your dad, John, I'm sure your dad made the introduction, but anyway, they were kind of baffled by that. And he goes, so we thought Tim's in town. We'll take him out to a really, really nice dinner and like just treat him. We'll just go all out. So they're buying a bunch of wine, they're bringing all these nice meals in, and they're just bringing plate after plate at these old Italian joints. And he goes, I'm starting to think, man, the bill is like kind of, this is Kevin telling me, I'm thinking the bill is kind of adding up. And I'm looking at Alan and all these other illustrators. And then he goes, and then the waiter comes over, and as he's approaching, he sees me pull out a card and he starts shaking his head, and it's a cash only business.
Oh no.
And he goes, and we start panicking, and he goes, and the waiter goes, we only accept cash or a check from a business we truly believe won't bounce. And he goes, my dad hears this, and he goes, you cheap bastards. And my dad had to pay for this dinner.
Oh my
So it's like
gosh.
on top of doing like complimentary printing for these guys, he bought them like he said it was like a $600 like in the 80s, right?
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
Like
God.
an ungodly dinner, like, and they thought, no, we're doing this to treat Tim. So, but they made it right. He's like, I raced home to get the check sent to him, but I love stuff like that. Hearing about like those days is so much fun.
Oh, that's great.
That's
Did,
cool.
did he bring up the name Woody Pirtle?
John, it was like a machine gun of
Yeah.
names, and it was so
Okay.
much fun. It was so much fun hearing those
I
stories.
just I
Yeah.
mean Woody was part of Pentagram Design
Oh yeah, he brought a pentagram design. Yeah,
and Woody passed away like a week ago. And I just
Oh,
Oh,
really.
yeah.
I know that.
He was from Dallas. He used to be a really icon in Dallas and then went to work at Pentagram.
It was really fun. I get to hear stories like, and it was fun because John, I've told you stories about meeting up with people that knew my dad, and like they'll like open it with like, your dad was the sweetest, most gentle man, and you're like, you never met my dad. Right? And he opens with like
He
some
was
of the
trying to get
stories from like,
business from you is what he was doing.
yeah, I was like, yeah, you sound like a client. Right? Yeah, you were a client for sure. No, he starts telling stories that I'm like, oh yeah, you like really knew my dad. And it's kind of cool because you're like, this is my favorite thing is I didn't really know him. This guy's telling me stories, so I get to hear all these new stories that I never got to hear, and it's really fun. And
that's special.
oh, it's
yeah, it's
totally.
awesome.
And then you go to, do you guys ever have like restaurants you go to where you're like a regular at? That's a dying thing.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Awesome. How many times do you think you got to go to a place before you become a regular?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I think it depends on location.
I want to make a
Yeah.
coffee table book about this. The art of becoming a regular. Nobody steal it.
I
But
think
no,
also like
yeah,
to become a regular, like one of the fast tracking ways or would
yeah,
be to go late at night,
yeah.
be part of that crew because usually you meet other bartenders or people who work in other restaurants. Like that's
I think some of
that's
it's
my
also
favorite.
opening up and like giving them a little bit, saying
Right.
being warm to them, um,
I think
that
it's
may that
probably
can
easier to
make
become a regular as a lunch customer.
yeah. I know it's not cheap to become a regular, right? But if you can make it happen, I recommend it. If you can be a regular somewhere, do it. If it like works for you, it's awesome. Because we were at this place last night, and I was like, oh, this is like one of the best meals I've ever had. And it's I like, he goes there clearly enough that he knows the chef, who's like this 75-year-old Italian immigrant. And I'm getting to hear stories about him immigrating to New York um, during the height when he was 17 during the height of the Vietnam War and having to choose to leave Italy, his country, to escape many of the problems he was experiencing there and trade that for being drafted into the Vietnam War and then not being able to speak English and navigate New York and like work in restaurants. And I was telling him, I said, I'm house sitting this dog. This is so trivial. And this guy was just like, what is this idiot telling me? Why is he telling me this stupid story? But I was like, my biggest fear of watching this dog is I get locked out of this apartment, right? Uh, what a nightmare that would be, right? And then what would amplify that nightmare? What if I get locked out and I don't have my phone on me?
Mhm.
What do I do? I have no idea, right? And I told him that, and he goes, when I first came here, the first year I was here, I was taking the subway, and I don't even remember where I was taking it, and I fell asleep, and I could not speak English.
Oh,
I woke up at the end of the subway, and I just had to wander New York until I could find someone who looked Italian or who was speaking. I was just listening for someone speaking Italian, so that because I knew that they would help me.
oh,
And you're like, oh, I was like, how long did that take? And he was like 12 hours.
oh my gosh, that's overwhelming.
Yeah, he's just like, I had no idea where I was. I knew nothing like at all. And you're just like, oh my God, the resilience is amazing. I don't know. It was very sweet. And also I'm doing like a bunch of family history. So it makes me think of like my family. I'm like at Penn Station and I'm like, oh, it's crazy. Like every ancestor I had went through this station.
Right.
I don't know. Anyways, it's enough of my like New York romanticizing. I just walked by like 80 Burger Kings to get to this apartment. So
Yeah, but you're on what's it called? Reporter is traveling.
Location.
Yeah, you're on location.
I'm on location.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone said, Timmy, tell everyone how they can become a regular at VAP. Well, you know what? I'm gonna get to that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Ken. We are actually, if you're not familiar with Visual Arts Passage, it's what makes tonight happen. So we always try to, every Thursday, have an open drawing night where we can offer some educational information. We do some catching up. We talk about pop culture. We just chat about what's going on in our lives as well, like just me dog sitting in New York. I'm sorry. But this is all sponsored by an online art school, Visual Arts Passage. And the entire purpose of that school is to help young artists or new artists who are passionate about what they're doing turn that into a career. It's not like a learn how to make as much money as you can as an artist. It's about learning how to make what you love something you can do every day in a way that's sustainable. Um, it really is about how to make good art and make it a big part of your life, which I think is an incredible blessing that anyone can have, like really no matter what situation you're in, it's like if you can sustain yourself making art, I mean, what a luck. That's so lucky. That's so special. And that's everything we do. And the way we do it is through mentorship. And so our classes they're not super focused on individual topics. While we have topic-based workshops, they're more focused on the overall development of process and skill, and then the ability to apply that process and skill. So you kind of move through our programs. And once you learn how to apply that through ideation and great storytelling, we say, what do you want to do? I mean, you really start with that. What do you want to do? And we help you target that goal by developing the skills, developing the ideation ability and storytelling, and then eventually the portfolio to chase that dream. And I don't know, I always think about it. It's like you only live once. And every year you get to like dedicate to like doing what you love, which I feel like I can say confidently, it's like I bet easily there's 100 people drawing with us tonight. I think every single one of you probably loves making images and telling stories one way or another. And I'm sure some of you probably get to do that every day, and some of you are probably trying to figure out how to do that every day. And the one thing I will promise you is it's possible, because we don't ever have anyone teach for us that isn't doing it.
Yeah, I mean, do you mind if I add a couple of things?
Please do. Yeah.
You know, that I've had kind of a really interesting history as a kind of a bystander of the illustration world, even before I started doing it. Because I got lucky, it was around all of these fabulous illustrators and learning about the industry, learning how it worked, learning how when I started, the power and the advantage of understanding how to monetize or have a career in it was incredibly helpful. It was, I always joke and say, that if I could have been as good an artist as I was as far as understanding the industry, it would have been a lot easier. But understanding the industry was it's incredibly important of how you fit in. And I think the best way to learn how to do that is surround yourself with people that are doing it. I've always thought that education as an artist should be given by active participants of the industry. And even somebody like my father or Fred Otnes that were incredible artists, they weren't the right people at the academy to tell you how to get your career started because it had been too long. I'm not the best person for a young artist to talk about. I'm going to use a little bit of a caveat for me because I listen to all these other artists talk about it all the time. But I've always thought my job in creating education for artists is to put you in the right room with the right people that do what you want to do. And so identifying that and then having a way to communicate and have a relationship with them through a mentorship program has worked out beautifully for our students and continues to work for our students. There's no secret that Cassandra and Ray both teach at our program, and they're like perfect candidates for me to have as instructors because they do exactly what they're teaching. I mean, that's their livelihood. And I don't know. Ray, you can probably add on to that.
Well said, though, Jimmy.
Cassandra, you certainly can. But I just think the value of having people that are actually doing it is so important.
Yeah. I mean, I think Cassandra and I are both products of having mentors that practiced in the industry, and that were heavily involved in, because they were a viable role model for us, I mean, like I mean, Cassandra, how empowering was it to like actually meet a real artist, like a real working illustrator,
Oh my gosh.
gallery painter?
It's like seeing an endangered species in the wild,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Which it
They
feels like that,
exist,
but
it's
it feels like
real.
that, but they're everywhere.
Yeah, but like it was not a part of my everyday life. I didn't know like actual professional artists that made a living doing it until Illustration Academy.
There's so many of them though. But the only reason I say that is just because I think that there's this myth that it's like not attainable. Does
Right.
it make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think online education really helps with that. And like, it's something that Cassandra and I did not have. Like, it was very localized to, the area that you happen to be there in, and just got lucky.
Mhm.
I mean, I sought out my teachers, and Cassandra, you did too.
Hmm.
But still, it had to. Yeah, I mean, we could have been born in another country, right? And where
Totally. I mean, that's such a good point, right? I just always go back to the thing is all the amazing things that have happened in my life. Literally every single amazing thing that has ever happened in my life has happened because another person helped enable it. I can't think of anything that was just happened in a vacuum just because of my pure talent or my like pure ability to create things. It all happened because somebody opened a door for me, you know? Um,
yeah,
and I mean, I don't know. Yeah,
well, it's also timing, right? I mean, it's
totally timing. Yeah.
you know, when the timing is right, when you're able to receive the information, I think it's huge. Um,
Oh yeah,
and
I've got a cool thing to share actually on the topic of when you're ready to receive the information. Can I share? Do you guys mind if I share what I saw today at the New York City Library?
Please.
Really cool. So I took photos of as many of them as I could. So the New
pretty sure you're
York,
not allowed to take photos in there, but okay, go, yeah, carry on.
right, well, okay, New Yorker.
No, just
Don't worry about it. Okay, so I was at the New York City Library. The New Yorker was doing a uh, a showcase. What would be the proper word
That
here?
works.
exhibition.
An exhibition. That's pretend act like you run an art school, Timmy.
In New York, we would call it an exhibition.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm trying. I'm doing my best, right? Okay. They were doing an exhibition that featured kind of the New Yorker over time. And a big part of the exhibition was they were showing basically original copies of some of the most influential authors that have ever written or been assigned an assignment by the New Yorker and the edits that they received, right? And so these are some of the most influential authors of the past century, right? And the reason I wanted to share this tonight is because we talk about critique, we talk about getting feedback, and often, I'll be totally honest, oftentimes, not often, but like maybe a couple times a year, I'll hear from somebody about how they received a critique, and it like hurt. I'm not saying that that's not real, but like they'll say like this sucked. Like I don't know, I didn't feel good about it, or they feel like directionless, or it broke their heart, even though it was, I think it's one of those things where it's tough. It's like you have to prepare yourself for how you receive it, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things I want to say is the critiques that we do are that John's the best at it in terms of really equipping you with what you need to do better. But I want to show everyone this because these are some of the most iconic storytellers of all time just getting shredded by the New Yorker, right? And you'll see this. It's like Rich, story killed. You never want to hear it when you're you don't think that the word killed written on your story is a good thing for the New Yorker, right? And then I mean this is this is a passing grade, right? This is this you would be like, okay, this is okay. But most of these would be like if you submitted this to your class, you'd be like, oh, I failed the essay. These are brutal. So this is Annie Proulx wrote Brokeback Mountain. This is an early copy of Brokeback Mountain.
These are so cool.
Pretty mild. James Baldwin. So I mean, can you imagine
Critiquing James Baldwin.
yeah, critiquing James Baldwin? Let me see. I've got more. There for some reason they're not showing on that because one of my favorites was this was my favorite one. Couldn't believe it.
Someone said retrospective. That's a better.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
I knew Ray had it wrong. Um, Look at that. Truman Capote in cold blood. Big old X
With the
over
huge X.
and you. Yeah.
What a hack.
In cold blood.
I love the
In cold
stick
blood.
figure. Is that a stick figure at the bottom, like in the
Yeah,
last
look at
paragraph
that.
there?
It does
Yeah,
look like one, like a
I'll go ahead
fancy
and say
stick
it.
figure.
I did not read through all of these to see if there's anything offensive in them or anything,
It's
because
like
some
Truman, I'm gonna draw
people,
a stick figure because that's more
yeah.
interesting than this writing.
But I mean, just if you ever get a critique on something, just remind yourself, Truman Capote wrote In Cold Blood, and it went to the New Yorker, and they wrote a big X through it. Now, I want to also remind you, though, this is not the finished copy of In Cold Blood. The editor of this was not wrong.
Yeah, because that was my reaction when Timmy told me about it earlier. I was like, wow, was that guy ever wrong?
Yeah, no, this is Truman needed this. And I'm not like an aficionado of Truman Capote, but like they're showing this because this was the process. And it was how they like a lot of these authors got to where they want. And like, I don't know. I think that's inspiring. I think that it should be like a nobody gets it. Yeah, it's not easy for like I don't know. You would have thought, oh, Truman Capote, just a life of a boulevard of green lights,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, just like brilliant talent. Probably nobody ever said no to that guy. I was like that. Seinfeld talking to Alec Baldwin. He's like, "What do you just answer the phone and say no?" Like, is that all your whole life, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Not art. I mean, it is art, but not picture making. But anyway, I just know how much it sucks to get feedback because I've gotten feedback on edits before where I'm like, I got feedback on an edit a couple, like probably like a month ago, and it was like a dagger. You want to hear this? They gave me notes that were they were very obtuse notes. They were very loose. They were like, we need it to feel a different way. And they told me what they wanted to feel like. I did what I thought was good. I sent it to them, and their response was, somehow it's worse.
Oh,
Oh my
it's
God.
hard.
And I was like, oh, yeah, they were right though.
Well,
Hey, no bedside manners, but they were right.
what it's funny,
Yeah.
for class I typed up I have a or type up. I showed everyone what I type up, which is my spreadsheet of I
Yeah.
call it my art triumph and fails. It's everything I try for. And like I keep track of everything and I can see how many times I've been rejected in the last 6 years and how many
Mhm.
things have been accepted. And so when I was like pulling it up for class and stuff, I had actually realized I was like, oh, I can like actually figure out what my average is. Ray, have you ever figured out your average? Have you ever done all of that?
I have not, but I'm almost positive that I've gotten way more rejections
Yeah.
um, than acceptances.
Oh, yeah. So I realized I'm at a 29%. That is my acceptance rate of all the things I've tried.
That's that's like incredibly good.
I know if I could get 29%,
Wow.
That's how I
we'd be on a
responded
yacht
too. I
right
said,
now. We'd be doing Drawing Hive on a yacht right now if I was at
No,
Yeah, I know,
it's like,
right?
but it's,
Live from Fred Otnes's house, Drawing Hive.
yeah, Fred Otnes' house looks kind of small if I
I
was
will
at
say there
29%.
was some really big rejections and continuous rejections, like
Yeah.
things I've tried for like 6 and 7 times. It's my annual rejection of the thing I try for, and it still continues to be a rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I stopped caring about
It's
if
not
it
that
was like
I,
a no. No, I know. I'm not saying that you're holding on to it. For me, it's definitely I love the fact that you do that because you're showing yourself that like when when it starts to happen, like it's more of a collection of your wins and losses, right? And I think
yeah,
that that's empowering because that's really all we think about. Is like when it didn't happen, when it didn't work, and as artists, we're our worst critics, and I think that we tend to be, at least. And when you don't see what you often just overlook what you accomplished and really focus on what you didn't accomplish. I think it's really healthy.
Well, also, what was really interesting is like I have a section of my spreadsheet that just says, are there any updates? And, there's things that started out as a rejection, but later led to a really interesting path. Like because of rejection from an interesting grant that I tried for, that actually led to a great partnership with an organization for a show that led to a whole lot of other things that I ended up doing all the things that I was saying I was going to do if I got the grant. I ended up not needing the grant. So it was, I think those things are
Right.
exciting to be able to later have hindsight over also.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mean to,
No, 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 I didn't think you
like, it
did.
sounded super flippant about it. Yeah, whatever. I just don't care. Have you tried that, Cassandra?
I'm so
No, I
good, I
mean,
don't need that.
no, yeah, right. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's interesting. So, if those of you listening, I mean, we all go through it. I mean, we've all been to there was a point in time where I couldn't draw a thing to save my life. And uh was told that probably art wasn't the thing that I was ever gonna ever do. Uh, yeah, so it's all about like a learning process and getting the right information in front of you, and you being at the right point in time where you're able to accept that information and internalize it and to achieve your goals. And I think that's why I love teaching a visual arts passage, because you have somebody like Sandra and John and all the other great teachers, just sharing they're pretty candid. I mean, there's no secrets to anything, and we're gonna just tell you what worked for us and what didn't work, and you're gonna realize it's really not. There's nothing magic to it.
Mm-mm.
Just about really solid steps, that uh, each lead that build upon each other, and hopefully get you to where you want to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's funny you said that. They said like art's not going to be your thing. I think this is hilarious. The crossroads I was at when I was in grade school, they it was like they were trying to separate the kids in math, and I was really bad at math. And they were like, you know what? This is in the 90s. So they were like, you know what? They didn't like try. They were just like, you're gonna be a reader. They were just like, they were just like, you're gonna have to just have a calculator on you all the time. Right? And they were like, you're gonna be a reader. And then I had dyslexia. And so they were just like, you are just you go over there. Like, yeah, right. Just out of sight, out of mind.
Right, right.
But no, totally. Like this idea of I think getting just diving into what you want to learn, regardless of like, I don't know. One of the things I will say that I think a lot of the most talented artists have in common is when they like, not, I don't, I shouldn't be so like careless with the term talent, but just like successful or happy even, is that they didn't factor like odds making into like whether or not they thought they could make this a career. It was just, I want to make it a career. So
Gotta do stuff.
I just got to do stuff. And one of the things that somebody told me recently, and it's kind of fun. I'm going to blend financial advice with the more creative advice. And my teachers would have never expected this back in the day. But I was talking with a financial advisor a couple weeks ago, not for me, just out of, he was a person I met at a cocktail party, and I was just picking their brain. And they were telling me about people who try to time the market, right? So people who try to like guess when the market is down, and they try to guess when it's going to go up, and they always try to buy when it's low, and they try to sell when it's high. Okay. So people that do that well still like, so when they wait, so you have to, a lot of that involves waiting, right? waiting for the market to crash or the market to drop, and then waiting for it to rise, right? So it's a waiting game, and then a lot of it is still guessing or projecting what you think is going to happen, right? It's a risky game. Um, but even people who do that well, that waiting game of timing the market, do not perform as well as people who just jump in the market. I find that
Wow.
fascinating. And I think that that is probably true of everything in life, is you can tell yourself there's going to be a better time when the market is low and I can start focusing on my art career. There's going to be a time where things are low and that's when I'll jump into it. It'll be better then, right? But the truth of the matter, in my opinion, is and what I've seen is you just got to jump in and 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 figure out how to do it in a way in which you can stay in. That's the important thing.
Mhm.
You
Well,
so you do need
the
to be
other side of
smart
that,
about
Jimmy, is that
it.
of all the artists I've watched develop, I don't think I've ever met one that had like a plan B. It was always, it was,
Yeah.
I'm going into I'm doing this, and that's it for me. That's what I'm going to do.
We've met a couple of them, but they're insane. They're crazy talented. I think Afua is like Afua's got like 8 things she could do,
Yeah.
right? Afua Richardson, she just
Yeah, that feels like she could have could she yeah, she could do
world's her
anything.
oyster. But we're not a lot of we us are not Afua, right? Yeah. Anyways, everybody, we got about 7 minutes left. So keep drawing.
Man. My favorite thing in doing this is like playing around like this is looking on camera what it looks like.
It looks cool.
And everybody, just a refresher because somebody asked. Please share your work with us tonight. So if you haven't been posting it, consider posting it. Please post it. It's hashtag Drawing Hive 238 hashtag Drawing Hive and VVisual Arts Passage.
Right, it's exciting to see you paint. For now, I see it's in
Uh,
Photoshop, but you were painting.
yeah, which is the reason why I was late today. I was like, oh, I'm on time. I'm gonna set up my painting setup so I could just paint. And yeah, that didn't go well. Nothing worked. So I was scrambling. So finally got some jerry rigged setup together. So. But I'm glad that you noticed, Cassandra,
I did. I was
uh,
excited.
and not Timmy, who complains about me working in Photoshop all the
I complain about Photoshop.
time. You're like, so Ray, what are you in? Photoshop? Seen that before.
I'm like, why aren't you using Clip It? Or the Paint app, man.
Ray, I have a talking about critique and a hard critique. My favorite was Harry Carmian critiquing my father, giving him industry advice. And he told him, he said, Mark, you work really hard. You're going to be really good at something someday. It's just not going to be illustration.
Wow. Was that at Art Center?
At Art Center, yeah.
Yeah.
And they became very good friends, but it didn't, my dad said that it was really hard to take because he was kind of like hero status for my father when he was in school.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. And that's I read that somewhere that Howard Pyle, same thing happened to him. He tried to get illustration in some
God, who would have done that to him?
magazine. It was a magazine. I forgot what it was. And the publication was like, yeah, no, like you really nice try, kid, but maybe learn something. You do something else, with your time, sort of thing. Like you ain't good enough to work here, but good luck on whatever it is that is.
I mean, I truly don't find people who have an easy like the Wonderkins, I don't enjoy those stories as much as the people that just like like literally forced their way into doing what they wanted, even though like the universe, it felt like the universe was against it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
It's so great. Yeah. Um, yeah. Which like my mom always says that. She's just like, if you want it to happen, you can make it happen. You know, I always love that. Which
Yeah.
by the way, I forgot. I told my mom gave me a really great pep talk today, and it's her anniversary today for my dad. So happy anniversary,
Whoa.
Daddy.
Happy anniversary.
I kind of blew it.
Happy anniversary.
I kind of blew it. Have you ever called your mom on her anniversary and just griped about something? and then and then been like, okay, now I feel better. Bye. Yeah. That's how I operate. Yeah, it's good, mom.
I was who I was talking to, but I we're talking about kind of the creative life and it's like about how like people we have to kind of work with people, normies, people with regular lives, quote unquote regular lives, right? And in a sense of like just like them not understanding like, I can't really have a day off. Or yes, I work from home and I work for myself, but that doesn't mean I could just go out to lunch or take 3 weeks off or,
Yeah.
I have to bring my work with me, but at the same time, I have flexibility. I could do things. And, I was saying to the person, we look at our lives. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, like if you were to describe it to somebody who had no idea that this was even possible, you would think that they were describing either like a French duke or a just a you know a person insane, clinically insane. It's like it
Oh,
doesn't make any sense.
totally.
Yeah, explaining it to aliens would be pretty confusing. You're like, it's kind of
Right.
like dreams almost. Like, yeah. Like you'd be like, yeah. Which everybody, by the way, start posting your work to Instagram. It's hashtag Drawing Hive 238, hashtag Drawing Hive and VVisual Arts Passage. Start posting it now. We're gonna be over there in 5 minutes exactly. So do not wait. Yeah,
Can I,
you're right.
Well, I
You've
think
totally nailed it on the head. It's like it's it's very special.
can I
well, and
tell you
I
how
think
hard it is to when someone asks me what I do and I tell them that I'm a gallery artist, then they ask me what I paint to explain it in a way that somehow makes sense.
I have the hardest time with that question, Cassandra. I don't know what to say to them.
I'm just like, well, I paint animals and clothes, but they're like old clothes, and then I use old frames, and I get I do that professionally.
You know what I will say this as like a I think that it also sometimes for somebody who's maybe outside of it, it's like it's hard because it's a very personal thing that gets wrapped
right,
up in small talk, right?
Mhm.
And so they're grasping at straws to contribute to the conversation. And so they're going to ask you questions that probably sometimes, depending on the person, is like kind of demeaning, right?
Well, no, it's not
yeah,
demeaning. I just feel I like don't
Ray
know how
Ray's
to
straight out was
just.
just like, yeah, definitely.
I,
yeah, yeah.
I've
It's like
never found it demeaning.
no, it's like I could see. I never
I'm
found
trying
it
to think of
demeaning.
like the typical question I'm thinking of.
But I could see how it would be like I know other people that would look at that would receive it much differently than the way I would receive things. Where it'd be like, oh my goodness, like this sounds really like you're patronizing the person, or
The perfect example
but
was,
it's not. They
yeah.
don't mean it most of the time. It's just like you said, they're grasping for straws. I love that, by the way. I love like telling people what I do because I get to just educate them and be like kind of make it. It's like I view it as my opportunity to be like, yeah, this is a viable career, and you've met somebody that does it. And I've got most of my
Right.
wits about me. I'm a person, and So I think somebody at my gym, my gym instructor says, you know, I'm an artist, and they were like, oh, okay, and I'm like, no, I'm not one of those ones with like the fancy berets and like, you know, uh, uh I summer in
The guy
Nantucket.
that like
I'm just
swings
the
on like
artist with the
the guy that
I'm an
swings
artist
on
with a
like the
mortgage.
trapeze bar
Yeah.
with the bucket
Yeah,
paints.
yeah. Yeah. I'm an artist. I'm the type of artist. I'm an artist with a mortgage. I'm just a regular person.
I'm an artist with a mortgage. That's awesome. Yeah, I last night when I was talking with Kevin Gatta, we were talking about Alan Peklek. And for those of you who don't know, Alan was an amazing designer. If you start looking up his design work, it's incredible. And then famously known for designing Apple's like their most, I think, like iconic like associated with the Apple brand. Um, and when I met Alan, he was a much older guy, and I did not know him, and I just was like grasping at straws to make small talk. And I thought this was a pretty good small talk. I have a friend who has become relatively kind of nationally known in the design world for being like the most respected gold leafer in the country.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Um, and he's flown around the country to do two things: repair historical gold leaf in city by like usually like cities or municipalities that like want to preserve some type of history or preserve um, signage. And
Wow.
he's like extremely particular about it. The signage, he requires that they have like enough historical photography of the signage because he doesn't want to leave anything to guesswork, right?
Right. Right.
Right.
Um, and I don't know, I think that's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Alan was asking me, we were kind of just getting to know each other. He knew my dad. And I was like, you might actually find this really interesting. NPR did like a feature about my friend, who is like this kind of like self-taught, bizarrely talented sign painter. Um, he's restored one of like the largest historical signs in America. And he was like, this is disgusting.
What?
Yeah, he was like, how can you be friends with somebody who's destroying American history? And I was like,
Yeah.
literally, I was like,
Wow.
I didn't take it personally at all. I was just like, oh my God, how do I get the hell out of this conversation? And
That's
I
a
was like,
reaction.
oh,
It's
the
awesome.
fastest way. I couldn't quickly enough be like, you're totally right. I need to stop him.
That's awesome.
I
That
just
is awesome.
I wanted to get out of it so bad, so bad. Yeah. And then he was just like talking about typography. And I'm like, did you ever see the documentary? The documentary Helvetica had just come out. And I was like, I actually just watched the documentary Helvetica. And he's like, what a pile of trash.
Oh.
And you're just like, man, I'm trying so
Yeah.
hard.
No. Yeah.
We just shouldn't talk. It's not going to.
I was like, yeah, I was working so hard. I remember telling my dad, being like, I called my dad. I was freaked out. I was like, I think Alan Pekelec hates me. And my dad was like, didn't he put you on the will for his parents? I was like, yeah. And he's like, I don't think he hates you. I think he just treats everybody that way. Like, but no, he was a sweet guy. He was just like, dude, I grew up with characters. I love it. I love
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I know that brand of
You know what I mean? Yeah.
opinionated, just like, yeah.
I have a theory, and while I'm doing this, I have a theory on that. I'm pulling up Instagram right now. Um, but I have a theory that New Yorkers, I think they seem to be the coldest people. I think they're the friendliest. I think
Well, thanks, Timmy. Yeah,
I truly mean it,
I
right?
agree. No,
And
I
the
agree.
and I have a
I
theory
agree.
on it. I have a theory on it because I've spent a ton of time in California. I would rather be caught in a pinch with a New Yorker, like in a strange place, not knowing what to do with a New Yorker than my California people. I love California. I I love California
Yeah.
people, but New Yorkers are so accustomed to shared spaces, it comes across as cold, but they're being
Right.
respectful.
I get that. I can
It
see
is
that.
it is a shared space. And so you have to be respectful of a shared space. But I have been in wild situations where strangers have been incredibly helpful to me in New York, where I'm like, oh my God, you just like saved my life.
Yeah.
No, like, no problem. You never see that person again, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be, obviously, I just can't be unbiased about it. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. Instagram's, believe it or not, being difficult. But we're going to get there.
Gives me more time to figure this out. I'll take it.
Okay, here we go. You all want to see some art?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
But it looks like it's going to be a
I
color.
can already tell Charlotta's. That
Oh
looks
my
fantastic.
God.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
that's great.
So cool.
Oh my gosh, nice. New
Ooh,
That's
follow.
great.
Love it. Thanks
that's
for joining.
lovely. Nice, Xander.
Nice, Xander.
I love the
Killer
patterning.
backdrops too. Yeah,
Please, yeah.
the White Lotus promo. Nice.
Ooh, great job.
I think that's a video.
Walter Goggins gonna win the night.
I think so. I know we already saw these.
Me?
Okay, nice.
Ooh, that is love. I love how you handled the dress versus the drawing of the
That's awesome.
face.
Amazing.
Really nice. Beautiful. Good expression.
That's what, nice.
Sorry, I can't. It's not. It's be very, very. You think updates make it better.
Sorry, Timmy.
Yeah.
I've like only done it twice and it's so hard. I'm so glad you're handling it. Thank you.
For something
Don't
that
give him
seems-
an out. Don't
for
give him an
something
out.
that we're
I
all
am
so
giving him out. I did it and
yeah.
I like was showing my face, just like awkward angle, trying to get it to work. Yeah.
It keeps doing this. I hate it. Okay. Awesome stuff. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's beautiful.
Oh,
think
we're
I-
not seeing
Can
it.
anybody
We've
see it?
lost you,
Oh,
Timmy.
did you really? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thanks for saying something.
But you say it's really fun listening to you describe them.
They sound really
Yeah. We
good.
should do, I think we should do an audio only podcast.
We're not, somebody said we're not seeing awesome. I'm not gonna be able to, we're just gonna have to look at the grid, everybody. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's
Being
fine.
weird.
Yeah.
Sorry
That's fine.
and sorry for keeping it going long, but it's important we see it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ooh,
okay,
that
Ooh,
that-
There's
whoa, look at
yellow.
that one.
That's what I'm saying. The yellow
Jeez.
image, Anya's work. I was like, whoa, that's
that
awesome.
is so cool. Same with
I
Taylor.
love these. Yeah.
beautiful.
Marcy's. Look at
Is that
Marcy's.
Marcy?
That's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, I see that.
Great job. Wow.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh,
Oh, that was
Robert.
Robert's.
Yeah.
Anya's stuff is awesome too,
Anya.
man.
Wow, man.
Nice.
Cool. Great job, Geek Designs too. Ooh, look at those.
Nice. Wow.
Man.
Jeez.
Wow.
Great.
Wow.
It's a good night.
Yeah.
Nice, Terry. Yeah, Sally's there too. Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, Sally, that's
Allie,
awesome.
lovely. Karen, love it.
That image was made for Sally, the way she's
It
been
Right.
was.
Mhm.
thought of her when I picked that.
That shot.
Oh, that's nice, AJ.
That's great, AJ. That's what I was
Mhm.
trying to do.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
say
I know. It's like you got all the things that I couldn't get.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
that shot of
that whole
that
page
shot
is
of Arnold's kid
beautiful.
was awesome.
Ooh,
Very
really
cool.
nice. Good job, Randy. Ooh, look at that.
Wow.
Wow. All of them. So good.
Yeah, I could tell that was Julian's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. Really nice, Terry.
Nice.
Good job, Karen.
Oh, Aaron. See, that's a nice way of handling that. Water
Yeah,
too.
I was
I
just
should have
thinking the
done
same
that.
thing. That's what I always feel like.
I like that, Terry.
Oh,
Nice,
that's
Terry.
Like
Very
how
cool.
good.
immediate that is.
Nice, Jeff. Gary, that's
Gary.
beautiful. Look at the hands.
Wow. Way to go,
Jeff,
Jeff.
that's cool. Wow.
Felicity, that's awesome.
Felicity, yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. That's a
Felicity.
good,
Man.
that's a great last image to end on.
Mhm.
Everybody, I just want to remind you all, classes are now enrolling. It's early bird, so if you want to save a bit, it's Spring 200. That's $200 off. Just use code Spring 200 at checkout. What a fun night drawing, everybody.
That was
Thank you so
great.
much.
Ray,
Awesome.
Cassandra, Timmy,
Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you all for joining.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a great
Thanks,
week.
everyone.
Come back next week. Join our Discord and give us recommendations on what we should draw. All right.
Take
Bye,
care, everyone.
everybody.
Hey, everybody.